it's 13, and I have a confession to make. As some of you guys may have known, I'm already 27 years old, and I have been gaming for most of my life. And as Charlie would say, I put nuts to butts. But there's a list of games that I have been actively avoiding like it's the last piece of moldy bread in the bottom drawer of your refrigerator. And as you guys may have guessed from the title, it's Elden Ring, along with its Dark/Demon Souls brothers, as well as all of the other ones. But you're probably asking, why? And don't get me wrong, Elden Ring is a really good game, but I just haven't come around to getting good, as the Souls fans would say. So stick around and watch till the end of the video to see what it's like finishing Elden Ring as a total beginner. This video was made with the support of my patrons and subscribers. Consider giving this video a like and subscribe to my channel. More info in the description and comments below. In total, this death-tacular adventure took 10 days to finish, so we'll be breaking this down on a day-to-day basis. But before starting this whole journey, I've set myself up with a rule that I will follow throughout the entirety of the game. And that rule is, I won't be googling any walkthroughs or information regarding the game. I'll only be relying on what I know about the game and my experience playing other Souls games. Basically, I'll be going in blind as a bat. And I'll also be playing the game in offline mode since I don't want to see any of the messages on the floor that could possibly tip me off, as well as get help from other players or be interrupted by other players. So, let's start this journey, shall we? Day 1 basically was me learning the quirks of the game, the in-universe jargon, and all of the other stuff that I could learn along the way. Character creation started with me questioning why exactly do characters not start at level 1, and me choosing the Vagabond as my starter. After creating a discount vial at Evergarden, I started the game, and as the intro was playing, my only real thought was, I have no idea who these people are, and I have no idea why I should care. But don't worry, the game will make me care soon enough. I went out of the starting area and realized that my dodge roll is hideously bad, as I was trying to destroy random boxes Legend of Zelda style. After receiving the classic British greeting of getting stabbed, I died and woke up to a horse and a girl talking about stuff that I absolutely still had no idea about. I jumped down into the Cave of Knowledge, killed a bunch of guys, and failed to do a guard counter on a boss. And with that, I finally got out and marveled at the majesty of the lands between. But not before I went around the building that I just got out of to look for secret loot. After complaining extensively about Souls games not telling you where to go, I got my face slapped by the game telling me that the Sites of Grace basically show you where you should go. So much for that complaint. I also did not know that I should talk to NPCs multiple times until I exhaust their dialogue. I'm so used to games that have NPCs talk until they're done talking that it didn't really cross my mind to talk to Vare once he was done talking the first time. The only reason I knew about this was because I wanted to talk to him to listen to what he has to say once again, since I missed some of what he said the first time. I was told to go to Castle Stormveil to square up with Godric the Grafted. With the name and the place known, I went to go see him and kill his ass, but not before I talked to Cypher from Valorant.
That you're not after my throat.
I bought a crafting kit that I barely used and talked to him a few times, and off I went to kill more knights Metal Gear style. Though I got sidetracked and went inside Groveside Cave and immediately got killed by wolves. I managed to kill the Beastman and I got a talisman that gives you fire resistance. It was a pretty underwhelming reward, but to be honest, it's whatever. At another side of Grace, Melina offered me a Honda, though not the Accord that I was thinking of. The Accord she offered was actually a horse and she helped me use my runes as stats. Unfortunately, I had no idea what stat to put on for fear of not being able to min-max properly, so I opted to put one of each on Vigor, Endurance, and Strength, because I'm indecisive like that. After picking up the sword that I'm about to use for almost half of the run, I killed all of the knights in the ruins, picked up a map, a wet blade, and killed the Discount Titan from Attack on Titan. I got sidetracked and decided to kill the Tree Sentinel while on horseback. This is going to be a running theme throughout the entire video, aside from being lost. After killing the Tree Sentinel, I talked to this lady along the way to Stormveil Castle. Unfortunately, I got caught off by this George R.R. Martin and Miyazaki looking nightmare called Morgott, who of course wants to fight me, and after removing almost half of his health, I fell down a cliff and yelled, "Oh come on, that's bullshit!" And after dying a few times to him, Melina, the Honda giver, sent me to the round table hold. I talked to a bunch of dudes, a blacksmith, and got hugged by a woman. Apart from the risk of dying to multitudes of beings, I'd say the lands between ain't so bad. After getting killed by Albric inside the round table hold, I went back to killing Morgott. Unfortunately, I'm not good enough to kill him, so I went outside to farm runes to over-level myself. And this is assuming the bosses don't scale with your level. Fortunately, as far as I know, the game doesn't do this. So after reaching level 19, I pretty much tried fighting him again, but I failed miserably. I was feeling pretty frustrated at this point, so I called it quits and called it a day. Day 2 started with me once again over-leveling myself, killing a bunch of titans, a dragon, and whatever it is that can give me more runes. While adventuring, I discovered a cave full of smithing stones near the place where I killed the dragon, and I also met Ranni. She gave me a bell that can summon ashes, which at the time I had no idea how to use. I upgraded my Lordsorn Greatsword to +3, leveled myself up to 22, and readied myself for another beatdown session with Morgott. After finally learning how to use the bell that Ranni gave me and an hour's worth of fighting Morgott, I finally managed to kill him.
Deal with it, bitch! Deal with it!
I went inside the castle, but I doubted the guy next to the gate, so I tried going into the castle through the gates, and I got blasted by arrows that are a meter long. That's 3.2 feet for you Americans. This pretty much forced me to take the scenic route, where I got accosted by birds the size of a person. After coming to grips with the reality that gravity is a bitch a few times, I finally got out of there and pushed myself further inside Stormveil Castle. I noticed that there wasn't a whole lot of sites of grace in this area in particular, so I became more and more paranoid of dying since I'm gonna have to do all of this shit again. Anyway, with this in mind, I went inside the dark room and got myself killed. After managing to reach the top of the area, I found a site of grace where I could finally level up the runes I had, and after dying a whole lot to the knights with fart powers, I stopped recording, lost my patience, and Alt F4 the crap out of the game. Day 3 was pretty much just me trying to survive the gauntlet that is Stormveil Castle, without using my already limited flasks, of which I only have 5, after unlocking this elevator and finally giving myself a shorter path to wherever it is that I need to go. I tried squaring up with the dude that killed me in the intro of the game, but once again, I got stabbed to death. To be honest, the only reason why I'm squaring up against this dude is because I thought I was gonna get bodied by the loads upon loads of enemies outside this stupid fucking door, until I realized that screaming Leroy Jenkins and killing them one by one is also a viable option. After aimlessly running around inside Stormveil Castle, I managed to find Godric, which took a solid 30 to 40 minutes of running around this maze-like castle. With the help of my wolves, I eventually took down Godric.
The Lord of all that is.
After an hour and a half of repeatedly dying to him, and quite frankly, I kinda fear what other bosses will be like in the near future. It'd probably take me a good 3 hours of trying to kill a boss repeatedly to even feel progress. After killing Godric, I finally got out of Stormveil Castle to reach Lyran of the Lakes. Unfortunately, after killing Godric, I only squeezed 3 levels out of the runes he gave, which is fucking bullshit, not gonna lie. But I guess Elden Ring kinda operates like real life. You know, unfair. I adventured throughout the lake and looked for where the map of the area is. After finding the said map though, I noticed that there were a lot of mobs chasing me and was spawning out of every crevice of the area. I didn't really like the idea of dying to lowly mobs, so I more or less just got the fuck out of there after coming across a random stone that teleported me to a huge fuck off gate that blocked my adventuring. The gate was sealed and it told me I needed a glintstone key. Fortunately, I got a map that probably pointed out where the glintstone key would be. Though when I saw the map, I checked my own map and I thought it was in another place completely. I thought this was Stormveil Castle and I had to get to some river next to it, but I wasn't really in the mood anymore to do some more treasure hunting off an incomplete map, so I decided to call it a night and got myself out of there. Day 4 was a pretty quick day to me. Killed a bunch of knights, killed what looks like a tank in Elden Ring, talked to an old lady about fingers, ventured out into a sunken town, and discovered a sleeping dragon. After doing the math, thinking that I can take on the dragon while I was incredibly underleveled, and mind you, my math skills is on par with an infant with brain damage. And after hitting him and seeing how little damage I made, I decided to get the items behind him, and to my absolute surprise, the glintstone key was there. I shit you not, I did not expect it to be there at all. Anyway, since I got the glintstone key and since my objective was already achieved, I said fuck it and tried to fight Smaragd the magic dragon, where he immediately burned me to ash with his stupidly wide blue fire. After dying to him, however, I made a beeline back to the gate and ventured through the academy of Raya Lucaria and found one of the many discount Burger King mascots throughout the academy. After getting ambushed by these upstanding British citizens, I went to this moving elevator thing that immediately reminded me of the clock tower from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I ran around once again, aimlessly, but the map was kinda designed in a way that it would funnel you towards where you need to go, and I knew this because the place directed me towards another boss. Unfortunately, before I can get to his room, I had to square up against dozens of these Burger King mascots, and after dying to them a good 1 to 3 times like an absolute idiot, I realized that you can just run past them and you won't get hit, which was hilarious because I tried fighting the dog after getting beat up by the magical Burger King guards, which left me with 2 flask charges, which was absolutely meaningless against him since I pretty much died within the first 30 seconds of the fight without even having a chance to use all of the flask charges that I had. At this point, I'm gonna beat Mike Tyson's highlight reel for the quickest knockout ever. In day 5, I decided instead of dying 1 million times to an enemy that I couldn't possibly defeat and wasting my time, I took to the streets of the lands between and became an absolute fucking menace, in the hopes of gaining enough runes to become over-leveled for my upcoming fight against Radahn the Magic Wolf, or whatever his name was. As my pockets were filled with the runes gathered from my fallen enemies, I became covered by the blood of those whom I slayed. Fancy writing aside, it's pretty nice that you can get all bloodied up in this game. I didn't expect you could even get this level of blood on your clothes. I was killing so much dudes that I eventually reached the Weeping Peninsula, killed a guy on a horse, and some dick who was camping in front of this castle. I ventured into the castle with the hopes of finding a boss that's easy enough to kill, and yes, that's the mindset that I was in a Souls game. Never mind the fact that every single enemy can most likely kill you in the game, but expecting any boss to be easy is a stupid mindset to be in and of itself. Soon enough, I spotted the piss-colored entrance to the boss room, and found Leonin Misbegotten, which hilariously enough I was able to kill on the first try. Die, bitch. So much for Elden Ring bosses being hard, right guys? Right? Anyway, for my efforts, I was able to collect a measly 12,000 runes, which is shit, not gonna lie. It only managed to give me 1 level. Oh well, at least I got a sword that I'm never gonna use. And with that disappointment of a weapon and boss out of the way, off I went to visit a minor Erdtree out of curiosity. Luckily, there was a boss there to kill. Unfortunately, killing the Erdtree avatar only yielded 3,600 runes.
See, now that's some bullshit.
A lot of fucking around later, I found a chest that pretty much just teleported me to buttfuck nowhere. I didn't really know where I was, but I was like, okay, cool. I found a grace in front of it and a giant that was lying down. I almost lost my shit because at this point, I would rather just kill a rotating door of bosses and mini bosses, since killing mobs don't net you that much runes anymore. To be honest, I don't really plan on retrying bosses for hours upon end, so I'd really rather be over leveled to Kingdom Come when squaring up against bosses. Anyway, the giant got me 2,992 runes. It's not a lot, but at this point I'm just happy to get at least 4 digits and 1 kill. As I was starting to gain a little bit of confidence in my skill, I boldly decided to face Smaragd the Magic Dragon back in Lucaria. Unfortunately, Smaragd was too much of an immature child that he won't hand over his runes in exchange for his life. So I was like, whatever man, Spyro is a better dragon than you, and promptly left to visit a blacksmith, upgraded my greatsword to +5, and went back to Limgrave to farm once again. After a lot of gallivanting across the lands between, I found an elevator that showed me yet another jaw-dropping piece of art. A scenery so serene, it managed to stop my ADHD and watch the star-like lights of the inside of this cave grew in numbers. But I had a job to do which was farm more runes. So I snapped out of it and pushed David Attenborough's nature documentary narration voice out of my head. Anyway, after killing a few dudes in Seafra River and realizing that they're too tanky for my liking, I decided to go back up and murder a bear. While running around Limgrave, I also came across Bernal, which showed me a bunch of Ashes of Wars. Apparently, these are skills that can change the special move of your weapon. But unfortunately, this to me was useless as fuck because I couldn't see the actual animation of what the skill was. I'm not gonna put something on my weapon that could be the slowest skill ever known to mankind, nor will I put something that's straight up ass. Not to mention, I'm not gonna use my already important and short supply of runes for a probably useless skill, so I ignored him and left. A few moments later, I came across a sentient jar, asking for some help. I was at the time very wary of anything that talked to me in this game, not gonna lie. The only people I trusted were the people inside the round table hold, since as far as I know, you can't swing your weapon in that area except for the place where you find that stupid witch cap boy. But whatever. I decided he was asking for help, so I helped. After giving him a Major League Baseball level swing, he flew a good 2 to 3 meters from where he was. I talked to Alexander a few times and he told me about a combat festival. Apparently in this world where combat is so common, they still have other activities, such as combat. Whoever the fuck thought of this should get fired immediately. Anyway, after leaving Alexander, I killed a generic metalhead fan, a skeleton rowing a boat with a brass instrument, and promptly died because of an invader. At this point, I got completely sidetracked and I was apparently setting foot onto DJ Caelid, absolutely forgetting that I was farming runes to kill that stupid magical dog. But after a lot of fucking around, killing knights, peasants, and other creatures, as well as almost dying to this world's version of a tactical airstrike, I finally went back to the Academy of Raya Lucaria to put down this dog. Red Wolf of Radahn was a tough fight. Him mixing up his fast and slower attacks really puts you on your toes. Not to mention a really quick lunging bite attack that stings. But after dying for a solid 10 minutes repeatedly, I killed him. Fuck you! And got a whopping 14k runes, enough to level me up once. Dear God. After that disappointment, I ran around the academy, discovering that apparently there's more to the area than I thought. Previous bosses usually just move you to whatever the next big area is, but here I'm still within the academy, so I guess this place is huge. Anyway, as I was looking around, I got Indiana Jones by a huge metal ball, tricked the dude to fall down into a bottomless pit, and realized that the reason why Red Wolf of Radahn was kinda easy to kill was because there's another boss in the area. Though, before I had to kill this woman, I had a few laughs with the intro cutscene. Anyway, as per usual, it's time for me to beat some ass, and in this case, I had to commit multiple counts of pedicide. Once again, to my surprise, Rennala wasn't that hard of a fight. The children, though they were creepy as hell, but at the same time goofy, especially when they were being pulled up like they're being abducted by some unseen UFO. After killing Rennala, unfortunately, I felt another wave of aimlessness. At this point, I had no idea where to go, so I opted to just move north of my position on the map, which landed me at Carian Manor, where I got jump scared by a sentient fucking hand. I ran as far as possible, only to discover a boss room out of nowhere. Here I got to fight Royal Knight Loretta, one of the most annoying boss fights I've ever experienced, mainly because I was so used to being able to ride Torrent when fighting enemies that are on horseback. But now Torrent can't be asked to appear inside a castle. Whatever though, I practically got beaten to submission multiple times, but I was able to finally snag a victory after 20 minutes of trying. After beating Loretta, I finally found an exit to this godforsaken castle, and it led me to Three Sisters. This is where I found Ranni, the girl almost everyone in this game is simping for, and for good reason. Hold up. Make that 4 good reasons. I talked to Ranni and immediately decided to serve her just because I'd rather have someone tell me what the fuck to do in this big ass sandbox. Anyway, as I was getting acquainted with Ranni's henchmen, one of them being kind of a dick and was asking me to do something, I would have murdered him if not for the fact that it might fuck up the game. After leaving Ranni's magic bouncy castle, for some reason, the game would not allow me to leave the area. I wasn't even able to teleport. Weird, but okay. After visiting Celevis, who I pretty much ignored since he was being such a fucking dick, I went off to meet up with Blythe, but not before I tried to kill Smaragd a 3rd time. I finally was able to kill him after he burned my ass twice and caused me to leave. I also tried killing Adula, but after I dealt some damage to him, he just flew away. Kind of a dick move, since he was already at half HP, but okay. Anyway, I went to Siafa River to try and meet up with Blythe in Nokron. Unfortunately, with this game being as cryptic and unhelpful as it is, I spent a good 30 minutes of running around to search for him only to not find him. Jesus Christ, guys, a little help would have been useful, but that's too much to ask from a From Software game apparently. In my infinite wisdom and annoyance, I tried killing these guys, but for some reason they were really tanky and I couldn't deal enough damage to them. Since I couldn't find Blythe and I had no idea how to progress, I decided to explore the unexplored sections of the map. So off I went to Bellum Church to see what's there, though there wasn't much to discover near the area, or more like I had no idea what this place does. Again, I pretty much just ran all over the map aimlessly. I ran into another mine that was riddled with smithing stones, which I looted. I got to ruin-strewn precipice, and I came across Makar, who was in dire need of a freaking antacid for his stomach acid laced with magma. After unceremoniously killing him, I got to Alta's Plateau, where I came across mobs that were pretty hard to kill. I pretty much took it as a sign to get the hell out of there, especially after encountering the stupid Elder Dragon that comes crashing down like he's the main event in a WWE match. Anyway, after remembering what Alexander told me about the Festival of Combat, I went to DJ Caelid and tried to find a way inside of Redmane Castle. And by sheer fucking luck, I managed to find Blythe, who was in fact not in Nokron, but was here. Anyway, he tells me Radahn is doing something that's screwing with Ranni's plan. I had no idea who Radahn was, so I was like, whatever dude, can you point in the direction where this Radahn guy is? Save me some time of running around this whole continent looking for one dude. And luckily, this is the place where you can fight Radahn and his poor horse. Seriously, why did From Software think giving a huge guy a comically small-sized horse would make for an intimidating boss? I mean, obviously they were going for intimidation, right? Anyway, reality hits me in the face like Radahn hits me with his stupid arrows, as it dawned on me that I was in fact probably not ready for this boss, and quite frankly, this whole dying to a boss then farming a fuckload of runes routine is getting kinda old. Given that I was already playing this game for like most of the day, I tried a few times to fight Radahn, but at my current state, I was dealing shit damage and he was dealing like 30% of my health bar every time he hit me. So I got out of there and farmed more runes. Switched the sword that I was using to something that has better attribute scaling, tried to kill a bunch of bosses and failed, upgraded my new sword. After doing all of that, however, I was still unable to kill Radahn. It was already getting late and I was already exhausted after playing the game for the entire day. I got out of my seat, turned my PC off, and actually went to bed. Day 6 was filled once again with rune farming and adventure. So much adventuring in fact that I discovered a tortoise with a bishop hat and a great rune on top of this random tower. The tortoise though was probably the most out of left field thing I've seen in this game, and I'm not sure whether or not I should take this guy seriously. After taking down X-Sykes, Grail, and an Erdtree avatar, and as well as other minor dragons, I managed to boost myself up to level 63. My monster hunting fun was cut short though after attempting to kill the Black Blade Kindred. Aside from being fast and his movements being erratic, it doesn't help that the damage I deal on this boss was so minuscule that I'd be dead before I could even take off half his HP. So I decided to get out of there and face Radahn once more. Unfortunately, I still feel like I'm not dealing enough damage. This realization comes after 20 minutes of trying, so off I went to another minor Erdtree to kill another Erdtree avatar. After killing the sentient tree murderer, I tried my hand once again at fighting the stupid Black Blade Kindred, but to no avail. Sadly, I was starting to run out of ideas as to where I could farm reliably, as well as bosses that I could kill easily. This was the thought that was bothering me as I returned to Caelid to farm whatever it is I could find. After killing another putrid avatar and one Commander O'Neill, I ran straight through the magic users in Celia, thinking that I could find another boss to kill. Sadly, there wasn't a thing there that resembles a boss, so I just decided to murder the Blade Ligers, or whatever their name was, for some extra runes. There were 2 of them, so I thought it would just push me a little bit further in terms of levels. As I used up all my runes, I reached level 67. I'm not sure whether or not this is enough levels, but I tried once again to fight Radahn. At this point, I don't really know whether or not you could fight Radahn when you're not on horseback, but I just opted to fight him while completely riding Torrent. Though what really gives me hope during this fight was the fact that I was dealing substantial and near constant damage whenever I'm close to him, but I feared both of his massive sword swings and AoE ground attack as well as his second phase because of the sheer amount of sweeping attacks that he could make, plus the floating rocks that I have no idea when he would throw. They always seem to hit with 100% accuracy, not to mention the wave attacks that you need to jump over and time correctly. Luckily, I'm able to reach the second phase with 6 more flask charges to spare. I charged him immediately as he landed to score a few cheap shots while he's still locked in animation, and for the first time in history, I saw him stagger. This Goliath of an enemy for once dropped to his knees and was presenting himself to get stabbed in the fucking face. I realized this too late, however. As I was in the middle of dismounting, I essentially got blocked from dealing a killing blow because his sword was in the way. Quite honestly, I thought I was gonna die here. Summoning Torrent will put me in animation lock, but standing here defenseless without my mount to get me out of danger is also suicide. At this point, I decided to grit my teeth and push my luck. I swing my sword with reckless abandon to try and kill him before he could kill me, as he was swinging his massive swords around with wide sweeping motions that could easily kill me. Luckily, those swings pretty much won't reach what's around his feet. Add a dodge roll and a few more swings and he finally went down. I sat there dumbfounded that I actually managed to kill him, and this was my only reaction.
Of the cradle of, modern internet technology, it means that there's...
But the dumbfounding doesn't end there. After killing Radahn, I was greeted by probably one of the coolest scenes in game. A meteor shower of biblical proportions, which also kinda reminded me of the scene from Your Name. Anyway, Blyde asked me to meet him on a crater, and once again, the game literally handed me a curveball. I did not see Blyde anywhere close to this stupid crater that is the size of a small arena. I also started to realize that Blyde has a bad habit of telling you where he's gonna be, but not showing up, which hurts because it reminds me of how all my Tinder dates go. Bad luck aside, I decided to say fuck it, I'm gonna go run around and farm runes in preparation for what's next. I once again ran around Limgrave to kill whatever I run into, and I found this place with rocks that are standing up. But at the center of this place was some sort of plate, or whatever it is. So I entered it and found another boss, Darrowil, another fast-moving sword-swinging thing. I have no idea what this thing was, but after finding out that I was doing this much damage to him, I immediately murdered him without giving a fuck about receiving damage. After killing him, I got thrown out of this place and the game prompted me to talk to someone. As I pressed to talk to whatever it was that I was about to talk to, by complete and sheer coincidence, I fucking find Blyde. After talking to him, I discovered that he was put in the hole by EG, which made me curious as to why he would put Blyde in jail, or whatever. I freed Blyde and teleported immediately to where EG was to know what the fuck was happening. For once, the game gave me some sort of direction in a not so direct way. But first, I had to talk to Ranni, who for some reason had nothing to say. After talking to EG and discovering that Blyde had to be killed due to Ranni not wanting to follow the command of the two fingers. But why? Why do I have to fucking kill him? No! What? Oh, that just sucks. Why do I have to fucking kill him though? At this point in the game, I was starting to piece together some sort of semblance of what the story is, what Ranni wants to do, and what the game wants me to do. EG told me to go to Nokron and find a treasure. Whatever this treasure was, I had no idea. I started in Siafra River. I was roaming around aimlessly once again, but after noticing that near the carcass of that huge elk-looking thing, at the entrance were lit pillars, and some of them aren't lit. So I figured it must be the huge Stonehenge-looking slabs that I was lighting on fire. So with a small objective in mind, I ran around in search of the slabs, and sure enough, after lighting every pillar, the elk was shining, almost aflame by a blue fire. I touched it and instantly got teleported to an entrance to a boss room. I didn't really know what to expect, so I more or less just prepared what I can for the fight. After hitting it a few times and realizing that it was weak, I went on the offensive and dealt the killing blow. After teleporting out of the area, I checked what changed on the map, but as far as I saw, nothing has changed. I did a few adventuring, but I ultimately left. I decided to go to the crater, but before going there, I had a small detour. Killed a few enemies on the way, killed another mini-boss, and talked to another Burger King mascot who apparently teaches magic. Seeing as how I followed the way of the sword, I pretty much ignored her. Anyway, I didn't really know how to go down the crater, so I just followed my platforming instincts and jumped down whenever I saw a reachable platform. A few moments later, I was officially at Nokron, the Eternal City. Hilariously, after hours upon hours of fighting the most hideous and intimidating monsters in this game, the game suddenly decides to whip out the motherfucking pourings from Ragnarok. Sooner or later though, other enemy types showed up, but that wasn't the end of the pouring menace. Anyway, I found myself in front of yet another elk carcass, which means that I'm gonna have to light a bunch of fires. While I was in the middle of the side quest, I found Red Wolf of Radahn just chilling and suddenly attacking me. I decided to ignore his salty ass. He's probably still butthurt that I killed him and sent him to Nokron or whatever. After finishing the side quest, I squared up against the Regal Ancestor Spirit, or as I'd like to call him, Bambi's Revenge V2. And before you go all actually on me, I know that Bambi is a deer, so shut it. After a few tries, I killed Bambi's Revenge V2, only for me to proceed to yet another platforming stage. I reached Siofra Aqueduct and ventured around and eventually reaching the Valiant Gargoyle, and it looked like the Black Blade Kindred, so I thought I could take him. But for some reason, FromSoft thought it would be really funny to put another Valiant Gargoyle in the same fucking room. After deciding that it's totally bullshit to put two bosses in one room, I promptly fucked off. After killing an army of pourings, as well as a giant at night sacred ground, I found the treasure Iju was talking about. I then immediately teleported to Ranni's Rise and gave Ranni what she was asking for. She gave me the Carian inverted statue, which after reading the description of the item, gave me an idea of what I was about to see. I readied myself for the adventure and fast traveled to Carian's study hall, placed the statue on the thing, and marveled at the level design that I have missed dearly from my PS1 days. After inverting the Carian study hall, it immediately gave me Castlevania Symphony of the Night vibes. And at this point, I started to realize that this game is kind of a Castlevania game. Think about it. You can use a whip, a sword, and a shield. You have magic, as well as relics that help you progress through the game, and not to mention Castlevania Symphony of the Night doesn't really hold your hand in terms of venturing through Dracula's castle. Anyway, I ran through the inverted study hall and more or less had a hard time with Preceptor Miriam, the magic spammer. I eventually reached the end of it, and to be honest, I don't know what I'm looking for here. And quite frankly, I have no idea what I'm gonna get. I'm just moving forward through any means necessary. After skipping this guy because I couldn't kill him, I went up to the tower and discovered the discarded body of Princess Ranni. I was dumbfounded, honestly, and gave it a hard look. Sadly, after this, I had no idea where to go yet again. I was trying to figure out what's next for me, so I visited Ranni's Rise and Renna's Rise to look for clues. Luckily, I found a portal at the top of Renna's Rise which teleported me to some unknown place, but there I found a miniature Ranni doll. Not knowing what to do with it, I walked around and see what else is there. I found a grace and used it to check on my stats, but surprisingly, the menu handed me an option to talk to the Ranni doll. I talked to it a few times, but it said nothing. But knowing the game usually hides something through the dialogue, I tried spamming it and suddenly I heard Ranni's voice through the doll. She asks me once again to do her bidding, so I obliged. I came across a creature that quite honestly I cannot explain. As it was throwing rocks at me, I promptly fucked off to a path that led me to a scene from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And this path eventually led me to Nextella, which was pretty uneventful aside from the Indiana Jones balls that don't actually run you over. I eventually reached Ainsel Rivermain, which led to a baleful shadow Ranni was talking about. After 10 minutes of fighting this blind lookalike, I killed him and he dropped the discarded palace key. I had a mini breakdown when Ranni said her goodbyes. No! Ranni! Ranni! But I eventually had to move on. I reached the Lake of Rot, but I had no idea how to cross it. But the monkey brain inside of me pretty much just told me, just cross it. What can I say? My monkey brain is sponsored by Nike. So I crossed it and realized that when you're already afflicted with rot, it doesn't really matter, since the damage you receive won't increase with further exposure to the lake. So I decided to pretty much just run the entire length of the lake, Forrest Gump style. I managed to cross it and reach a site of grace with a sliver of HP to spare. The pucker factor was really high at the time, but with the site of grace secured and me feeling like I'm gonna have to fight a boss pretty soon, I opted to get more runes to level myself up even more for whatever monster may come up. Before getting more runes, however, I upgraded my sword, got a hug from Thea, talked to Gideon, and teleported to the Bestial Sanctum to try and murder the Blackblade Kindred. Unfortunately, he still hits too hard, and so I decided to fight Lanciax instead. But that was a worse idea than fighting BBK, so instead I tried venturing further into the Erdtree Grazing Hill and finally putting an Ash of War into my plus 13 Banished Greatsword. As I had no idea what the best affinity for the sword would be, I just chose whichever increased their attribute scaling and whichever added the most in terms of damage. Grabbing the Lion's Claw as an Ash of War made fights much easier in my experience. The 2 tree sentinels in front of the capital outskirts got absolutely wrecked. It necessitated that I sacrifice one charge of the flask to at least give me another bar of mana. After dealing with Morgott once again and another night on horseback, I reached Leyndell, the royal capital. I was once again slack-jawed by the sheer detail and how imposing the Erdtree could be while this close. You're so used to the Erdtree just being part of the background that you kind of forget how big it actually is, only to be reminded of its sheer gargantuan size here at the capital. But enough amazement. I'm here to finish this game, and I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to finally finishing it. But as the day was already coming to a close, I was already feeling tired of dying over and over while exploring the capital. I once again called it quits and called it a day. As I soldiered onto my Elden Ring run, I feel like I was starting to get closer and closer towards the end. I knew I had to get what's inside the Erdtree, but I didn't really know how to get through it except through the capital. So I pushed on through and reached Morgott's boss room. And I don't know if it was just me or something, but it feels like he was one of the easier bosses to fight. Maybe because of my prior experience with Morgott, but it's hilarious how a guy who beat you up in the first few hours in the game can instill so much muscle memory in you, or more accurately, how much trauma he can instill. Though, even with that confidence, it still took me an hour to beat Morgott. You will die! Die, you bitch! Die! Yes! 0 deaths! At least he feels fun to fight, unlike the next boss. I tried continuing the thing that I needed to do in the Lake of Rot. I jumped into a coffin and threw myself into the falls full of rot. I got teleported into this place, unsure of what I would find. I pushed on only to find a boss room, and in it lies Astel, the bullshit of the void. The boss features incredibly large AoE attacks, a Radahn level beam at the start of a fight, teleportation, an area-wide nuke, tail whips, as well as biting you with his pincers. It doesn't help that hitting him was kinda difficult given the way he moves. You always had to figure out where he'd be 5 seconds into the future to compensate for your slow-ass sword swings. The only saving grace to this fight is the fact that I deal enough damage to even my odds, and because he's bullshit, I also embraced my own version of bullshit. I constantly summoned my Mimic every time I had to fight him. Actually, ever since I got the Mimic, I kept summoning him whenever he was available. After 44 minutes of solid bullshit versus bullshit tactics, I killed Astel, and behind him was a locked path. The sealed gate told me I can't proceed without a Ring of Oath. Not gonna lie guys, this roadblock had me thinking for a good hour, mostly because I didn't bother reading the description to the discarded palace key, which I got from day 6 after Ranni said her goodbyes. Anyway, after reading the description to the key, I went to the Academy of Raya Lucaria, opened the chest next to whatever her name was, and grabbed the ring inside. The game asked for a Ring of Oath, and the ring I got didn't have the same name, but I was out of lead, so I tried going back to that underground cavern to see whether or not it would work. Lo and behold, it worked. I have no idea why FromSoft didn't just call the ring I got Ring of Oath, but whatever. Being ambiguous as heck is their motto, even at the expense of making sense. After opening the path, I reached Moonlight Altar. Not knowing once again where to go, I just followed my instincts and went straight to the ruins, but before I could even reach it, I had to fight yet another boss. Glintstone Dragon Adula wasn't much of a challenge, given how every dragon in this game fights the same way. I reached the ruins and found a hole, and in the language of Elden Ring, this means I gotta go down, and surprise surprise, I found the body of Ranni. After putting a ring on it Beyonce style and chatting with Ranni, she basically tells me we'll meet once again at the ending of the game. I don't really know where or when that is, but whatever. I got the Dark Moon Greatsword, which I don't have the necessary stats for, so I immediately ignored it and went back to my plus 14 Banished Greatsword. I went back to Leyndell to see if I can finish this once and for all, and there Melina told me to go to this red mark on the map. Once again, another area of the map reveals itself, a snow-covered section of the map which I didn't expect. After reaching the lift, Melina tells me to reach the Mountaintops of the Giants. With the hope of finishing the game pretty soon, I hurriedly ran to wherever it is. With my feet above the clouds and the Erdtree and the moon closer than ever before, I have reached the Mountaintops of Giants. After receiving the map data for the area, a conspicuous looking telescope shows itself in the map, and with no other idea of where to go after reaching this area, I decided to go there and see what's up. After running into the locals and the local wildlife, I finally reached the telescope, saw the peculiar looking thing on top of the mountains, thought that it's the objective, and ran to it. Melina once again shows up to give me a few words of encouragement, and upon reaching the chain connecting the top of the mountain to the rest of it, I stopped for a few seconds to admire the view. Sadly, I didn't really come here to go sightseeing, I'll pretty much just do that in NG+. I got the map data, reached the site of Grace, killed a few titans, killed an invader, got his stuff, reached another site of Grace, and a few moments later, I was face to face with a fire giant, which proved to be a difficult adversary as I spent nearly 3 hours fighting him, but I wasn't able to finish him off. After dying to him for the infinitieth fucking time, I just alt F4'd the game and gave up. After the disappointing conclusion of day 7, where I thought I would be able to beat the fire giant easily, I found myself farming runes in preparation to fight the fire giant once again, with the conclusion that big number equals big damage equals easy life. After killing another Erdtree avatar, I went to look for more ways to get more smithing stones to upgrade my sword. After getting to plus 15, I tried looking on my map if there were any more caves that might have more smithing stones. I found the Sage's Cave near Lindell, but there weren't really any smithing stones inside of the cave, but I tried to explore it regardless. Found a hidden boss room with an absolutely useless boss inside. The guy only gave me 9,000 runes. After all of the things that I did, I managed to reach level 97. I once again tried to fight the fire giant on 2 occasions, and both times I fucking failed, wasting a total of an hour. Unfortunately, today was a work day and I didn't really have much time during the night to play anymore without it affecting me in the morning. And before you ask, yes, I am a full-grown adult balancing gaming and work. Something hilarious happened in day 9. After getting home after a long day of work, I booted up my PC, took off my uniform, changed to much comfier clothes, ate dinner, opened up Elden Ring, and beat the fire giant on the first fucking try. What the fuck? I spent like 2 nights fighting this guy and I suddenly beat him on the first fucking try? What? Whatever. At least I'm done dealing with this guy. I jumped on the chain, ran towards the Grace. Melina shows up, shuts down my character Windows XP style. She firebends, praises the sun, and becomes Melina, the Unburnt, Mother of the Maidenless. She straight up becomes Daenerys Targaryen minus the dragons and the horrible ending. And yes, I still hate the Game of Thrones ending. Hashtag don't bother changing my mind. She straight up starts burning the Erdtree and I suddenly got teleported into the shadow dimension, or whatever this place is. As is the case with anything in this game, I have no idea what to do and wherever it is that I have to go to once again. I more or less just ran around until I found another boss to fight. Unfortunately, the first boss I fought was pure fucking bullshit and I decided to skip him since he's not inside a boss room. I ran around Farm Azula, trying to farm whatever I can farm since I have a sneaking suspicion that the bosses in the area are going to be bullshit. So I went around getting runes and smithing stones to level myself up even more and upgrade my gear. I was able to upgrade my sword to plus 18 and level up to 101. And when I finally found a boss room, inside of it was one of the most annoying boss fights I have ever had to fucking deal with. That ultimately ended with me using a support summon as well as the mimic to even beat them. Take note, this game is heavily designed around one-on-one encounters against bosses. The idea to put 2 fucking bosses in one room is a lesson in how to absolutely butt-fuck your players really fucking hard. I tried beating them alone, I tried beating them with the mimic, but ultimately I had to just suck it up and use the support summon because if the game is going to be bullshit, I'm going to be bullshit as well. After a solid hour of fighting these guys, I was able to move on and get to the actual boss of the area, Malekith, the Black Blade. And after facing him once, I noped the hell out of there and decided to farm bosses other than Malekith. First was the Black Blade Kindred, next the Black Blade Kindred lookalike in Lindell. This pushed me to level 105. While 105 is a sizable number, unfortunately, Malekith and his Bleach Bankai powers don't give a fuck about my level 105 character. Sadly, I was already feeling tired and during this, it was already late, so I decided to quit for now and gave myself some well-needed rest. This is it, folks. The final day. I started it immediately with Malekith. With the power of AC/DC, my Mimic, Doritos, and Mountain Dew, I was able to kill him. A cutscene then plays, and I touched the Destined Death, or whatever the symbol is. The Erdtree is literally on fire, and I once again got teleported somewhere like my character is one step away from being in an AA meeting for having multiple blackouts and waking up in an entirely different place. I used up all my runes that I got, I pushed my level to 109, and off I went to explore the suddenly half-buried capital. But before I could reach the door to the final boss, I had to first kill Sir Gideon Ofnir, the All-Knowing. Unfortunately for him, he did not know I would have the patience to let him finish because I was already done listening to all the cryptic bullshit of this game.
To become notice that state of affairs. I commend your spirit, but alas, none shall take the throne. Queen Marika has high hopes for us, that we continue to struggle. Unto eternity. No. In my bow.
Shut the fuck up. But the fun doesn't stop there. I now had to fight the first Elden Lord, Godfrey. Fortunately, Godfrey was pretty straightforward. I'm not gonna lie, the Mimic was starting to carry me at this point in the game, pretty much grabbing the attention of the boss and doing some decent damage. Unfortunately, in phase 2 of the fight where he becomes Huaralu, Electric Boogaloo, his moves become much more erratic and there were a lot more AoE attacks that I had a hard time jump dodging. But it was only a matter of time until I could figure out the attack patterns and timings, and soon enough I was able to kill him. With the runes that I got, I was able to push my level up to 115. I also went out and bought Maliketh's armor, which was already long overdue. Having default armor while facing the final boss of this game is probably suicidal, and with everything out of the way, this was finally it. The culmination of the experience where I dove in headfirst into Elden Ring with no prior knowledge of how to play it, where to go, and what to do. Standing before me and the finish line was none other than Radahn. After a lucky first encounter where I was able to kill him easily, I wasn't so lucky with the Elden Beast however. With only 2 flasks of Crimson Tears to spare, I needed to kill him without getting hit, and on the first attempt, this was already a tall order. I tried as best as I could to figure out his attacks on the first try, but a lot of his AoE attacks I was not ready for. My only hope was to cause as much damage as possible, but the stars chasing me around more or less spelled the end for me. But I realized something. I wouldn't really be drinking a lot of flasks if it recovered more of my health. After racking my head for hours as to where I last saw a sacred tear, I visited the ruins of various churches in the lands between. Sensing that there would probably be a pattern as to where I would get the tears, I was able to upgrade my flasks and started to also use the Flask of Wondrous Physic. I more or less focused on defense so I could tank more hits once I drank the flask, and with those things out of the way, I once again stepped into the ring to finally put an end to this. There were a lot of tries before I could once again reach the Elden Beast, and at one point I even thought that the game was ramping up in difficulty because of how rarely I reached the second phase on my subsequent attempts in fighting him. But I didn't let that thought bother me. I knew that it was only a matter of time, a few more tries, as well as recognition of attack patterns. And in my final attempt, I would finally be able to kill Radahn. With no more flasks to spare, I was cautious as one of his attacks could easily erase half of what remains of my HP. He whips out a huge AoE attack that I was able to dodge in time, sends a bunch of stars right at me, as well as burn the water beneath my feet. Swings the power of the cosmos, he makes it explode, and as I step closer and closer, he wildly swings his sword only for him to miss, and as he was wide open, I swung my sword and ended it all. And as I watched him die, there was nothing left to do but summon Ranni and witness one of the few endings that Elden Ring has to offer. Here we are, at the end. Elden Ring was a surprisingly joyful experience despite the various difficulties and complaints that I raised. As the Elden Beast fell, a wave of elation and relief hit me as I screamed obscenities into the mic. Yes! Yes! It's done! The deed has been done! Fuck yes! Fuck you! I start to realize that during this whole journey, it reminded me of what gaming used to be when I was young. What it was like to fight an enemy far stronger than you and using everything in your power to beat him, without the help of a guide, the internet, a cheeky glitch you discovered off of your friends online, or any other external help for that matter. Elden Ring was truly an exercise in patience and will, and after finishing the game, fortunately, there's still a lot more to discover in the lands between. I haven't fought Malenia yet, and I haven't explored all of the map. Maybe next time I could go back, or maybe next time I could do a zero death run. So anyways, like and subscribe so I could afford my own house. Consider joining my Patreon for more behind the scenes content. Until next time.